Today, I'm buying in for $20,000 to play in the biggest poker tournament of my life. 348 players all fighting for their share of a $7 million prize pool, with first place taking home a whopping $1.3 million. That $1.3 million, it could change everything. But to get there, we'll be battling the world's best poker players, all competing for a seat at the Triton final table. But the kicker? It hasn't exactly been a smooth ride up until this point. Just 24 hours earlier, I dropped $15,000 in my first ever Triton event, but busted out just short of making the money. 11 hours of battling and my biggest tournament buy-in ever gone in a heartbeat. But that was just a warm-up. I'm back again, pushing the limits with an even bigger buy-in, higher stakes, and a relentless drive to reach the ultimate goal, a Triton champion. As I walk in to register for day 2 with $20,000 in my pocket, my nerves are a bit calmer than yesterday.
I need to play today because I lost yesterday, so we gotta redeem ourselves.
Even though our tournament life ended right before the bubble, those 12 hours of high-stakes poker were exactly what I needed to feel right at home on the big stage. I can't get too comfortable though. Every time the stakes go up, the players get all that much tougher.
When you put up $20,000, you get a second chance. So we're playing event number 2 here. Without further ado, let's battle with the best of them here in Jeju, Korea. Let's get after it. Let's go.
As I head over to my first table and get comfortable in the number 6 seat, I know I need to get off to a hot start. The blind levels jump every 30 minutes, so sitting around and folding isn't an option. If we want any chance of making a deep run and winning big, we need to get ahead of the tough competition. I'm starting off with 200k chips, which is good for 133 big blinds here in my first hand at the 1k, 1.5k blind level. Speaking of hot starts, we look down at a premium right away. Ace 10 of clubs from the small blind. Ishii Toshikazu from the +2 opens it up to 4k. Fun fact about Ishii, he's the first opponent that I faced here at Triton that I actually have more career earnings on Hendon Mob than. I have over 100,000, he has around 81k, so finally I'm playing in my league here, and I have a little bit of extra confidence now when I put in the call from the small blind. The flop comes ace 5-3 with 2 hearts. I have top pair, feeling pretty good about the situation, and decide to check it in flow over to Ishii. He bets out now for 2.5k, and I find an easy call. The turn now comes the 7 of diamonds, nothing for me to do other than check it over to him. Surprisingly though, Ishii decides to check behind here. At this point, I'm not putting him on any better aces, and I think I have the best hand. Leading into the river, which comes the jack of diamonds. Now I think I have to get value. He could have a hand like king jack, queen jack. Maybe he'd even call me here with a hand like king queen high. Also, he could have some random pocket pairs. All that being said, I fire out for 10k, and after a little bit of thought, Ishii puts in the call. I turn over my top pair, which I'd be super surprised if it wasn't good, but sure enough, he mucks his cards, and we're taking down a nice sized pot here straight out of the gate in event number 2 here at Triton. Remember when I told you the blinds jump up fast? Well, we're already at our next level, 1k, 2k. Just like that, our 140 big blinds have gotten slashed to just 105. Luckily, the cards seem to be on our side. I find another playable hand here under the gun, jacking off. But that's exactly what I can't be doing, because we're facing off against super pro David Coleman, who calls my raise from the big blind. David Coleman is a tournament crusher. He's from Livingston, New Jersey, which makes sense because he's been making a living feasting on other tournament players. He has $9 million in total live earnings, but more impressive than that, he's 5th on the Global Poker Index ranking, so someone I need to keep my eye on for the rest of this table. We're battling against a fellow American in position, and the flop comes pretty great, ace king 9 rainbow. David checks it over to me, and I decide to go for a 4.5k bet. I have jack king off. I have the range advantage on this board. I don't expect to get raised all too often. All that is leading me to bet 4.5k, and David finds the call. The turn comes a brick. It's the deuce of hearts. I don't really think this changes too much on this board, and David once again checks it over to myself. If I had top pair, I'd continue to bet, but I have second pair with some showdown value here, so I decide to check behind, which is also a pretty crafty move because it allows David to bluff on some rivers, but if I continue to bet here, he might fold a hand that finds a bluff on the river, and thereby making me a few extra chips. The river now comes the queen of hearts, and sure enough, David slows down here and thinks about all of his options. After debating what to do, he decides to fire out for the size of the pot, 21k. I think he's going to have a lot of value in the spot, such as some flushes, maybe king queen, king 9, a set of 9s make a lot of sense.
You didn't want to put in 22 to make it a pot size bet? Let's choose one of these, because I took 10 seconds counting out the pot to make that funny joke.
But given the fact he's the 5th player on the GPI list, I think he's also very capable of finding a lot of bluffs. And when I check behind on the turn, it gives David the information that I may not have a hand like pocket aces, ace, king, or maybe even a set of 9s myself. And for that reason, after hemming and hawing, I decided to put in the call here for the pot size bet, and he shows me a hand I wasn't expecting to see. He called out of the big blind with ace queen. I'm feeling a little bit deflated and outmatched, but still, that doesn't stop us from getting into a little bit of funny banter with David after the conclusion of the hand.
Was it 21 the pot?
I thought it was 20. I counted out as 22.
I think it's 21.
It was 21? Oh. You can talk back to me. I'm not good enough to get reads on people. I'm not one of these like super pros. All right, come with me. I'm gonna go get a pair of pants over there from Triton.
Sure.
Shit. Can't afford to lose that guy.
The Triton team has been awesome to work with so far, and Kate, one of the VIP hosts here in Jeju, brings us over to the merch tent for me to pick out a few items to wear in the series and back home in Texas. It's a real hard decision. Everything is super high quality. Everything Triton does is to the best standards, and that's no different here with their merch. I even get my 2 filmers a piece of merch for themselves as well. A nice little memento to take home from the tournament.
Do you guys want anything?
Yes.
Do you want something? Okay, we'll pick something out then.
With our wardrobe upgraded, we head back over to the table. With big pockets on our pants come big pockets on the table. Pocket pairs, that is. I look down at the jiggities. Pocket jacks might be one of the hardest hands to play in poker, but it's a welcome sight here in the small blind, especially when I know we'll be facing a lot of all-in situations today. Wang Yang raises up the hijack to 5.5k, and the action's on me in the small blind. If you guys remember from the last video, Wang Yang was super aggressive and put me in a really gross spot when I had top pair. I'm familiar with his aggressive image, and it feels like it gives me an edge, especially with a premium holding. Of course, I have to 3-bet with pocket jacks, and I make it 17.5k to go, and Wang Yang gets sticky in position here and puts in the call. The flop comes 6-5 deuce with 2 spades. All things considered, it's not the worst board in the world. Wang is still gonna have a lot of 2 overcard holdings. Of course, he could have a hand like 7-6 or maybe even a flush draw, so for that reason, we gotta charge him right here, right now. I copy and paste my bet from pre-flop and make it 17.5k to go once again. Action's back over to the hijack, and I think most players would either fold or call, but not Wang Yang. Remember what I said about him earlier? He's an aggressive player, and he takes a very aggressive line here by raising the flop immediately to 45.5k. At this point, I'm feeling a mix of emotions. Obviously, pocket jacks is going to be a call, but did Wang somehow spike a set, 2 pair, or maybe even the elusive 3-4 being a straight? Well, we're about to find out. I put in the call, leading us off to a turn with 131k in the middle, and it comes a board pairing 5 of clubs. All things considered, the 5 of clubs is a pretty good card. It makes it way less likely he has pocket 5 since there would only be one combination left, and 5-6 becomes extremely hard for him to have as well. I check it over to Wang, eager to see what he does. The hijack now takes an interesting line. After thinking about all of his options, he decides to check behind. Is he trying to take a free card and spike a spade on the river? Well, we're gonna find out. The river card comes the 7 of hearts. Interesting spot now for me. I'm in the small blind, out of position against an opponent who took a very aggressive line on the flop. I think I have the best hand at this point, so betting out into him makes some sense. But if we bet out here and get shoved down, we're in a super gross spot. So I kind of like checking. Another reason to find a check here is it gives Wang the option to go for a big bluff on the river, whereas if I just bet out into him, it takes all those options off the table. As he thinks about his decision, my decision is pretty clear. If he checks behind, we're obviously gonna win, but if he goes for a bet, I'm gonna super snap call him. I wanna make an image for myself at the table that I'm going with my reads, that I'm confident. That way people can't bully me in future hands. And sure enough, look at that. He fires 76.5k and even before he can get in the middle. One chip from my hand hits the felt, and we are playing a massive pot here. It's over 284K. What does Wang have? King 10 offsuit. Remember, you guys, $20,000 got me 200K chips, so this pot is worth almost $30,000 in raw cash equity. Absolutely insane. Real quickly, more than half of you guys who watched my last vlog, event number 1 here from Triton, were not subscribed. 58% of you guys to be exact. And if you want to see the future videos here from Triton, all of my deep runs, I would highly encourage you to hit the subscribe button and also to turn on post notifications so you don't miss a post. If winning with pocket jacks wasn't good enough for the first time, why don't we go ahead and try round 2? That's right, the very next deal, the very next hand. It's time to ride with the jiggities once again. Lasuski from Belarus raises the cutoff to 5K. Action's on me on the button. This is a great spot to come in for a 3-bet after showing the table I came to play with jacks in that last hand. Let's come in for a 3-bet to 15.5K. That clears the rest of the table. Action's back over to Lasuski, who thinks about his options for a while, and after debating what to do, he decides to rip his entire stack in for 74K. Even though it's only 74K, less than half a starting stack, that's still 30 big blinds, and 30 big blinds is a lot to play with. I have pocket jacks, and even though it doesn't feel like the best all-in situation in a $20,000 buy-in that I've sold no action of, I have all of my own money. It's a great situation given how short my opponent is. Ace 5 suited is like a super premium to these very good players. They play it the way they would pocket aces, pocket kings, ace king, but we're in a really good spot. The flop comes queen 10 deuce with 2 hearts. The turn comes a 6 of clubs, and just like that, we have 100% lock on the hand. When the river comes the 3 of diamonds, 154K pot being shipped over my way, and my first elimination here at the Triton 20K event number 2.
You're doing good, but can you go for the 3-peat? 3-peats are really hard to do. It'd be such a sick title for the video. I get jacks 3 times in a row.
It's really important in tournaments to run good in your all-in spots if you have any hopes of making a final table, and this is definitely a great start. I felt so excited about my first all-in of the tournament that I had to go over to my good buddy Rampage to share the good news. I'm sure most of you guys know who Rampage is, but for those of you who don't, he's another fellow poker content creator, and he's firing these massive high roller Triton events right alongside me in Jeju, Korea.
We both have double starting stacks, so I gotta post about it. I'm over there. Nice patch.
The big pockets continue to do their magic as we pick up yet another big pocket pair, this time of the Queen's variety. We're once again facing off against Wang Yang, who has raised to 7K first to act. A pretty no-brainer decision. I'm sure all of you guys watching right now would come in for a 3-bet, and I decided to make it 21K to go. Action folds around to Wang Yang from under the gun, and he doesn't think about it for too long before jamming his 88K stack in the middle, and of course, I snap him off. I'm feeling confident once again, as this is a dream spot against an aggressive player and a chance to go for another elimination. But now with their cards on their backs, I see he has ace king. It's a flip, and a lot more nerves start to set in. It's not looking good. Our hopes are crushed when we see the ace of clubs in the window until the dealer puts out the rest of the flop, the queen of clubs and the 9 of diamonds. Bang, we flop middle set. Before I can even realize what's going on, the turn seals his fate, giving me a boat with the 9 of clubs. The river comes a brick, and Wang Yang is out of the tournament, 0% equity, and we're taking in 183.5K pot. Massive for the chip stack, massive for the confidence. We have eliminated opponents with pocket jacks and now pocket queens, but saying you need to win the flips and actually doing it is a completely different thing. What a hold. The blinds have once again jumped to 2K, 4K now, but we're sitting with a healthy stack with 505K chips in our stack. Good for 126 big blinds still. That's a ton for such a fast-paced, high-stakes tournament. I look down at King Queen offsuit from under the gun, and that's definitely a good enough hand to come in for an 8K raise. We're gonna get called in 2 spots here from the hijack in the big blind. And the big blind, if he looks familiar to you, you're not wrong. Lasuski is the player I busted pocket jacks versus ace 5 suited. He rebought into the tournament and got sat at the exact same table in the exact same seat. We're going 3 ways to the flop here versus a familiar opponent and a new one as well. The flop comes jack 9 deuce with 2 hearts. I'm in between 2 opponents tournaments, when the big blind checks it over to me, I decide to check it to the hijack, who takes his option and checks behind, seeing a free card which comes the king of spades. Lasuski in the big blind checks it over to myself once again, and I decide to play it slow here and go into a check call line. The hijack takes the bait and fires out for 10k. I decide to just put in the call, and now off to a river in a 50k pot, which comes the ace of spades. I check it in flow over to the hijack, interested to see what he decides to do. He ultimately decides to bet out for 31k into the 50k pot, putting me in a tough spot. He could easily have a hand like queen 10 for a straight. He could have a 2-pair combo like king jack, king 9, ace jack, ace 9, or he could have a hand that got there on the river like ace 5 of hearts would make a lot of sense. Sure, he could also have some bluffs, but as I'm thinking about my river decision, I'm going over in my head the pot odds of how often this player needs to be bluffing in order for this to be a profitable call. Well, if you look at his bet size, it's 31k to win 112k if I call, 27% to break even, but I need more than that when I consider ICM and not just breaking even, being profitable. I probably want at least 30% here to be good and put in the call, but ultimately I decide he's just not bluffing enough in this spot and decide to make the disciplined fold. You need to make big folds as well to make a deep run in the tournament, and I decide this isn't the best spot to make a stand and put in a call. If you remember earlier in the tournament, I decided to do that against David Coleman. It didn't work out for me, so I'm not too sure if a little bit of fear has creeped in my brain or if I made the right decision. Let me know down in the comments. Not having a pocket pair in that last hand felt a little bit weird, I gotta be honest, so we need to get right back to our ways and pick up pocket 10s under the gun. Reiner Kempe is in the low jack and decides to 3-bet me to 22k. If you're not familiar who Reiner is, he has over $22 million in total live earnings, and he's the 4th highest on the Germany all-time money list. He's an absolute crusher and someone that we have to respect. I look over at his stack though, and I have nearly 5 times the amount of chips. He only has around 111k in his stack. So when the action folds back around to me, I debate going for a shove or just a call. Pocket 10s is a pretty good hand to go for a shove because I might get some better hands to fold like king jack suited, queen jack offsuit, stuff like that, and we're gonna pick up his chips without any contest. After some quick math, I realize he has around 27 big blinds in his stack and decide it's probably better to just put in the call and take my pocket 10s to the streets. The flop comes 8-5-4 with 2 clubs, and from under the gun, I decide to start with a check out of position. Action's on Reiner and he decides to bet out for 18k. Pocket 10s have to be good here a large portion of the time. I think he's gonna stab on this flop with a lot of his 2 overcard type of hands and then maybe give up on the turn or river. I put in the call and we're off to the turn in a 90k pot. The turn now comes the 8 of spades pairing the top card, and of course I check it over to Reiner. With 71k in his stack, he decides to bet out for over half of it. 40k is his bet, essentially committing himself to the hand. I could just call, but given the fact he only has 31k left behind, I think it's important to get it in now. If I make the mistake of just calling, he could check behind on the river with a hand like ace king, king queen, and we wouldn't have gotten that additional 31k. So for all those reasons, I decided to shove my 10s in the middle. If he has a better hand, so be it, but I think I have the best hand and I shove on him for 71,000 effective. After seeing my shove, he doesn't look thrilled, but he only has to put in 31k to win a pot of over 200, so ultimately he does put in the call. When he turns over his cards, I see why he was a little bit upset. Ace jack of clubs, and just like that, we're taking down a 232k pot and our 3rd elimination in a row. It's safe to say that Wolfgang is on fire.
Good for poker. Good for poker.
In this next hand, just a short 20 minutes later, we look down at pocket kings from under the gun. This is a pocket pair barrage, and I can't believe just how good I'm running. I told you guys so many times how crucial it is to build a stack early on in these tournaments, and we are getting exactly that opportunity as the dealer is sending us premium after premium. I open it up to 10k from under the gun, and Winfred Yu from the +1 3-bets me to 33k off of 113k stack. Winfred is a good player, and clearly because he has $9.9 million in total live earnings. But all that goes out the window when we look at his stack and see that he only has 22 big blinds left behind. The beauty about poker tournaments is even though some players like myself have only 100k in earnings, we're all on the same playing field. I have pocket kings. It's the 2nd best hand ever created, and my decision is simple. I have to go all in. I jam on him for 113k, and then he says something funny.
Up against the pocket.
The pocket? It's, I got big pockets today.
He can't get away from it. He puts in the call and shows pocket tens. We're in an 82-18% spot. The flop comes 9-8-3, giving Winfred some hope with a backdoor straight draw. My anxiety goes from low to high when the turn comes the 7 of clubs, giving him an open-ended straight draw, but the deuce of diamonds seals his fate, and we're taking in a pot worth $238K.
That's why I wore the cargo pants today. If you have big pockets on your pants, then you get big pockets on the table too.
Kings versus tens, a dream spot, nightmare on the turn, but we hold once again.
This guy only plays big pocket pairs.
With around 800K in our stack, I'm feeling super confident. Average stack right now is right around 300K, so I have just less than 3 times the amount of chips as the average player, setting me up for a deep run.
Somehow I have an obscene amount of chips. I like 750K. This guy's like stalking me on the Triton app. He's like, oh, I saw that hand where the dude put in half his stack. I'm like, creeper. To be fair, I've been stalking him too. How are you doing, Ethan?
I'm alive. Like 400K or so. Nothing compared to your monster stack.
Doing good.
As we approach another blind level increase, this time up to 4K, 8K. I still need to keep my foot on the gas. We're once again down to under 100 big blinds with just north of 700K chips in my stack. That's exactly why we need to get involved again in this next hand against the 5th best poker player in the world, David Coleman. David raises the button to 18K. The small blind folds and it's on me in the big blind with a suited Jack 7 of spades. I decided to defend, put in the call, heads up, off to a flop we go out of position, which comes ace 9-6 with 1 spade. I check it over to David and he decides to bet 19K into the 48K pot, around a 33% pot size bet. When the action's back over to me, I could fold my cards. After all, I just have Jack high, but I'm pretty deep here. I have 715K in my stack and I have double back doors. I decide to get a little bit sticky here and put in the call. We're gonna pick up a lot of information as to how David plays this turn, which comes the 3 of hearts. I didn't call the flop to lead out on the 3 of hearts turn, so I check it over to David once again. I think a lot of his hands would continue to bet on this turn, so when he checks behind on this 3 of hearts turn, in the river comes the ace of spades, wheels begin to turn in my head. I don't think my Jack high is gonna be good at showdown. If I check it over to him, he could check behind with a hand like king queen or maybe pocket 7s, but if I decide to go for a bet here, I can get a lot of those medium and weak hands to fold, a lot of which have me beat. I didn't sign up for this 20K buy-in here in event number 2 to not find a big spot against a great opponent. I'm gonna have to battle with the best if I want to make it deep, and I decide to go with my trademark patented 55K bet, Cinco de Mayo, baby. David, it's a fiesta. Let's see if you can hold on. It doesn't look like he has very much. He's squirming in his seat, trying to figure out if he can call here. Ultimately, though, he makes a face and folds his cards, windmills them into the middle, and I am absolutely ecstatic. It's a 141K pot, but more than that, I showed myself and all of you guys that I can also win pots by bluffing. It's not just making an absurd amount of pocket pairs and good hands.
I even made a vlog lately about it.
You made a vlog?
First time. You inspired me. I was like, okay, I need to start doing this shit, etc.
I gotta check it out then.
After a short break, waiting for all the max late registers and another update with Rampage, this time filming for his channel, we head over across the room for our first table change of the day. I'm disappointed because this new table is definitely tougher than the last. On our left is Jeremy Osmus, who has over $26 million in total live earnings and is 3rd on the Global Poker Index ranking. And on our right is Czech Super Pro Roman Hrabek, who has over $12 million in total live earnings and is 23rd on the Global Poker Index ranking as well. Speaking of Roman, we get the quick chance before this next hand to ask him a very important question. You guys don't know it yet, but I'm doing a 100-hour challenge at my home card room, The Fort, in Texas. You all should definitely hit the subscribe button right now to not only see the rest of this Triton series, but also to check out that massive cash game challenge coming out next.
Okay, I'm here with Roman Hrabek. He has won a Triton. He has $12 million in career hand and mob earnings, so I feel like he's a perfect person to ask. Roman, I'm doing a challenge in Texas where I'm playing 1-3 and I'm playing 100 hours and I'm trying to make $100 an hour. Do you think that's possible?
I wouldn't bet that you're gonna make it, but I hope you will.
If 2 super pros at our table wasn't enough, why don't we make it 3? Pavel Plezu from the +1 raises the price of poker to 30K. He's made over $8 million in his career, and he's the #1 Moldovan poker player of all time. And what do I look down at? That's right, pocket kings again. Now let's think about the situation. Pavel raised the +1 to 30K, and at this point he has around 38 big blinds in his stack. He's probably going to be raising a pretty tight range, and I have pocket kings, so I probably should just put in the 3-bet to 90K and be done with this conversation. However, I decided to get a little bit trappy here and just put in the call. That's right, I have the second best hand in all of poker in the biggest buy-in of my life, and what do I decide to do? Just call. And that brings in American Super Pro Jeremy Osmus, who puts in 30K from the small blind as well. When the flop comes 9-6-3 all hearts, we double check to make sure I do in fact have the king of hearts in my hand. Jeremy checks it over to Pavel, who checks it over to myself. A nice thing is here, I'm going to be in position the rest of the way, so when it checks over to me and I have pocket kings with the king of hearts, I decide to bet out here for 75K. I also want to charge any of Jeremy or Pavel's ace of hearts draws, so 75K seems good. Jeremy gets out of the way, but the +1 puts in the call. We're heads up in position to the turn, which comes the 5 of spades. He checks it over to me once again. There's 270K in the middle, and we're basically playing 465K effective, which is the rest of Pavel's stack. I don't want to go too large here and have him fold a hand he should have called with, and on the flip side, I don't want to go too small here and then I shove rivers and it's just way too big for him to find the call. So I decide to bet out for 125K, and after a little bit of thinking, he puts in the call, bloating the pot up to 520K. The river card now comes the 10 of diamonds. It really shouldn't be that scary of a card unless he had a hand like 9-10 or pocket 10s for an overpair on the flop and turn. I think a shove makes the most amount of sense, but what I do here might surprise you. I know I called pre-flop and that probably already surprised you, but betting small here on the river for 100K, well, that's kind of unorthodox as well. The logic is I really don't want him to fold in such a small bet. He'll probably have to find the call. He puts in a chip, but it's a time extension chip. It's not a call. He's gonna think about it for another 30 seconds, and after those seconds go by, he ultimately decides to fold. Pocket kings are gonna take it down in a very unorthodox way. Maybe, just maybe, if I would have shoved there, he could have found a call thinking I have some bluffs, but my 100K bet was just a little bit too milky.
Roman, do you now think I can make 100 an hour playing 1-3? After seeing that bluff? Yes, I redeemed myself.
Blinds have now gone up to 10K, 25K, 25K. It's approaching midnight, and I look down at ace-king offsuit from the big blind, sitting at around 765K, which at this blind level is around 30 big blinds. The +1, Lin John Wei, raises it up the minimum to 50K, and the action folds around to me. This is probably a 3-bet at a large frequency, but I decide just to put in the call here and try to outplay him post-flop, given the fact I'm playing this in a weird way. That's back-to-back hands I'm playing a little bit unorthodox, but I'm trying to just balance in some unorthodox plays with some pretty straightforward ones in order to keep my opponents on their toes. And here's a good example of how playing this hand tricky pre-flop might get me paid the maximum. The flop comes ace, queen, jack with 2 clubs, and this is definitely a board that's going to favor Lin over myself. So I decide just to put in the call, and hopefully he continues to bet on the turn. The turn now comes the 9 of clubs, and I have the ace of clubs in my hand. I check it over to Lin, thinking he's going to go for another bet, as this really shouldn't change too much, and he's going to have a lot of the strong hands like 2 pairs and sets. But when he checks behind here, it kind of surprises me, but the river card is an inconsequential 8 of diamonds. It really shouldn't change too much, so I check it over to him once again, hoping he goes for a bet so I can make a pretty straightforward call. That's what happens. I now check it over to Lin, but he goes for a medium to small sizing and bets 100K into the 215K pot. I think if he was bluffing here, he probably would go a little bit larger, and if he's going for value, he'd go on the smaller side due to the fact that this board should favor him over me. It's putting me in the blender here. I'm in a tough spot. I don't want to make a bad call here and risk losing another 100K worth of chips. At the end of the day though, I played this hand pretty weird from the big blind, and I think I'm at the top of my range, so I put in the call, and the hand he shows me does surprise me. Pocket 9s makes a set on the turn and wisely checks behind on the turn in order to get that second street of value on the river. You can see as the tournament goes on and on, these pots become even more valuable, and it's more important to win these pots than it is the ones that happened earlier on in the night. My chip stack is going in the wrong direction. The blinds continue to go up, and now we find ourselves getting table change to a completely new table where we know nothing about about our opponents. But as we approach the table and look around, I can tell that this table is going to be a little bit softer than the last one. So even though my chip stack is going in the wrong direction, I'm feeling optimistic that I can be assertive at this table. And how's this for kicking off our new table with the jiggities? Once again, not one, not two, but 3 times today. What is life? I'm first to act and raise it up to 50k. The action folds one by one around to Lu Yin in the big blind. He's a very good opponent, has made a lot of money, but still not as much as a lot of the other players I've been playing against the entire day. So I'm pretty confident here, taking him heads up in position to a flop, which comes Queen 3 deuce. Although there is one overcard to our jacks, I'm still feeling pretty good against the big blind's calling range. I decided to go small here for 35k. I want him to call me with all of his underpairs to my jack, as well as his overcards that have a king or an ace in it. I really want to get value from those hands. 35k is the price of poker, and he puts in the call. With 205k in the middle, the turn now comes the 9 of diamonds, and now I slow down and check. I think when he's calling me on the flop, he's either going to have a queen, an ace high, king high type of hand, or a lot of those middling pocket pairs. So I think checking here and allowing him to bluff makes a lot of sense. The river now comes the 3 of hearts, and he now checks it over to me. I think this is a pretty clear spot to go for value. After I check behind on the turn and he continues to play passively and checks it over to me, I think jacks are going to be good here and I want to get value. So I decide to size up large here with the logic that he's probably going to call me and be suspicious with any of his hands that have showdown value, and then snap fold all the rest of his hands. The longer he thinks, the more I want him to call, but eventually he does slide his cards over to the dealer. That's a fold, but still building momentum here is pretty nice with my 3rd pocket jacks of the night. Before I can rack up all my chips, the tournament director asked me to switch tables yet again. I'm a little bit bummed because this table was pretty fun and I thought I had an edge. My new table doesn't look quite the same. Right before we get settled at our new table, Super Pro Mario Mosbach comes over to Rampage and I to give us a friendly greeting. If you don't know who Mario is, he's a 3-time Triton winner who used to be a professional soccer player before he switched over to poker.
Are you both in?
Don't act so surprised. You know?
No, I saw you. You had like big stack.
I did, I know, but then I didn't, nothing happened, and I'm not creative enough to keep chipping up, so. Dude, these super pros, they know everything about everybody. It's insane. He knows how much you slept last night, what you had for breakfast. When's the last time you had sex with your girl?
Stacks are getting short. We're down to just 12 big blinds. There's only 57 players left in the tournament, and a jump from $0 to $34,000 happens at 55 players. If we can survive just another 2 eliminations, that $34,000 payout would already be my biggest tournament cash ever. All-ins are extremely risky, and that's exactly what happens here as Alexandros Theologus puts in all of his chips from the low jack. It's $310,000 to call, and we need to be extremely selective with our spots here as we approach the bubble. Doubling up our stack guarantees us no extra money, but losing it all in a flip situation will send us packing back home. Even more terrifying, our decision is going to be a hard one as I look down at ace king offsuit from the small blind. I don't love it. I could fold, but I want to make a deep run and make a final table, and we're going to need a lot of chips to do that. Ultimately, I decide to shove my entire stack in for 495k, so around 12 big blinds. It's scary though because the big blind has us both covered, so if he wakes up with a hand worthy good enough to call, well, he could send us both packing. Luckily though, he gets out of the way, and when the cards hit their backs, we see we're in a 75-25% spot. We have ace king, he has ace 9 offsuit. Still though, we're gonna lose this 25% of the time, and when we do, we're gonna be crippled down to 4 big blinds and still no money locked up. The flop comes 10, 6, 3 with 2 hearts. All right, that's clean. We got a hold on the turn and the river. The turn comes the king of hearts, sealing his fate, and we needed that king because the river comes the 9 of diamonds. If we don't hit that king or an ace on the turn, Theologus is gonna double up and we would have been crippled. But now this is a massive spot. 56 players left, 55 make the money. I risked a lot in that last hand, but I'm pretty stoked that I eliminated another player.
Dude, it's such a sweat calling it this close to the bubble. I just called the shove from the small blind. I had ace king, he had ace 9, I held. It's one of those things that's like, now on the bubble, it's like, do I even call with ace king? I think it's such a big bubble for me, I just fold, I don't know. That's the thing that all these people know, and like, yeah, it just sounds stupid. Like,
with 56 players left and 55 making the money, this is a stone cold bubble. That means we're going hand for hand. The tournament director instructs every table to play one hand and then stop. If there's an all-in at the table, everyone can go to that table and witness the bubble potentially bursting, which is the situation happening here. The tournament director has announced there's an all-in and a call, and I walk over to see what's happening. I can't even put it into words how cool this is, playing a tournament with one of my best friends. I locked up the biggest cash of my life, $34,000 in my first ever Triton series. Before the tournament series started, I really just wanted to get one cash under my belt, knowing that even a min cash could represent the largest one of my life, and that's exactly what happened here.
for the money? For the money, the money. Yeah! We're so rich. Downswing over. for you.
With now 55 players remaining, our eyes are now set on 39th place, getting a pay jump up to $41,000. All right, back to business. Ace 10 offsuit here in the small blind. All that celebration was good for the spirits, and I'm so happy to have made the money, but now we need to lock in for our new goal, the final table. Day one is about to end, so we need to finish off strong and win our last pot of the day. The blinds are up. It folds around to me in the small blind, sitting at around 810K, which is worth 16 big blinds. Do I rip it all in here with ace 10 offsuit? Do I limp, or do I come in for a 3x raise? I decide to limp, and he checks behind from the big blind. The flop comes ace 6-4 with 2 clubs, just what the doctor ordered. I start with a check, looking to call Daniel down here, but he checks behind. The turn now comes the 5 of hearts, and I continue to play it tricky and check it over to him once again, and he checks behind. The river now comes the 8 of hearts. I go for a 75K value bet, and he pays me off. We turn over the ace 10, and we are good for a 275K pot to end the night. I end up finishing the day with 885K in my stack, and now it's time to bag them up. They give us this plastic bag, and you put your name, your country, and your chip count on it. You put all your chips and time banks in there, and then you seal it off so nothing can be touched for day 2 tomorrow.
Well, there you have it, you guys. Finally, we got it done. If we can get down to 39 players, so what's that? Another 12 people have to bust. We make another $7,000. It goes all the way up to $41,000. So big pay jumps here, a lot of money up top. Let's get it. Bang.
As I walk back into Triton with $34,000 locked up, already my biggest tournament score ever, we have a new goal in mind: reach the final table.
There was over 370 runners. There's only 50 people left, and I'm one of them. I already accomplished that. I'm really happy. I got my day 2 chain on. Wolfgang Poker. Spent a lot of time designing this. Shout out to Ice Dazzle.
Now that we're at our table and unbagging the chips, the nerves start to settle in. It's getting real. There's 50 players left. The blinds have gone up to 40K, 80K, 80K, and 10 people have been eliminated since the day has started. We pick up this first hand here when the button jams his 1.9 million chip stack into the middle and the small blind folds. I find myself in the big blind with 735K, which is around 9 big blinds, with ace 3 of hearts. When the button jams here, he doesn't have to have us crushed. He could have a queen high, king high type of hand, maybe a pocket 7s, pocket 6s type of hand, but keep in mind, we're only one player away from pay jumping up $7,000, so it's another ICM situation where we have to consider not only the strength of our hand, but the value of our chips. Another good thing going for us is that we have a lot of time banks, so I use a few of those here to try to get someone to bust. That way I can put in the call with ace 3 of hearts. I think I'm ahead in this situation against the button's wide range, but I don't want to go all in here before someone else. But after realizing that I don't want to use up all of my time banks here, I ultimately decide to fold my cards and live to fight another day and ultimately make that pay jump up to 39th place.
Alright guys, really interesting spot just happened. The button shoved on me and I had like 700K at the 80 big blinds, so like less than 10 bigs. I had ace 3 of hearts and I was trying to use time banks to stall and then had to fold. But we made it, pay jump 39. So now we're up to 41,000, officially the biggest cash of my life. So Now we're down to 39 players, $41,000 locked up, and I'm feeling good.
The next jump is up to 48K, and that is 8 players away. But we have some work to do first because we only have 535K in our stack at the 100K big blind level, so only 5 big blinds. But a welcome sight is when we look down in the small blind at pocket jacks, and Roman raises the hijack up to 200K. This is a no-brainer all-in situation, but still, our tournament life is on the line. I rip my stack in, and he calls it off with Queen 8 of hearts, and here's the run out.
Can you beat Jack High?
Jack.
Nope. GG. Yo, we got the double, Ethan. Now I have 2 big blinds.
With the nerves settled after doubling up through Roman, a few hands later we end up pay jumping up to $48,000 when we get down to 31 players. The tournament director has us switch to another table, and we end up going into a bit of card death, but with 4 more players having been eliminated down to 27 players remaining, we get another pay jump up to $55,000, so you can see the value of just sticking around in the tournament. Other players are risking their stack, going all in and losing, and I'm not playing any hands, and I've now made $7,000 twice, so $14,000 without having even played a hand.
So funny situation just happened. We almost got moved, but then we had to put out our big blind and ante 250K. So unfortunately we're down to peanuts, but we got a pay jump. $62,000 locked up, and there's another all in over here. Who knows? I mean, we're just making money doing nothing. This is called passive income. Passive income here at Triton. Fucking love it. This is sick.
And now it's time to go over to the feature table with a little bit less chips, but a lot more money in our pocket.
Cheers, brother. TV table.
Spin. Oh,
Where are you going?
perfect. I'm going to 3.
I have
You got some chances.
I have a pulse.
We're on the feature table. I'm feeling comfortable, but I only have 4 big blinds or 450K in my stack. Remember, we started the day with 50 players and now only have less than half, 23 remain, but I have my work cut out to me if I want to make the final 2 tables.
15-minute break. We're on the TV table. We got like 3 or 4 big blinds, but at least everyone will be able to see me double up on a TV table, which is really cool.
I end up having to fold a few times, bringing my chip stack down even further. But then Daniel Rezai raises under the gun to 300K, and the action folds around to me in the big blind. I only have 100K left behind, and I haven't looked at my cards yet. Most of my stack is already out in the middle, but I think this is a perfect opportunity to do something crazy for content. Go all in blind. It's only 100,000 left in my stack, and that's less than a big blind, so I think I have to do it. I never thought ever in my wildest dreams I'd go all in blind for my tournament life, let alone in a $20,000 buy-in in Korea in my first ever Triton series.
I should just do this blind, because that's like fun, right? Right? It's like I got 100 left, and that's like a small blind, like.
After calling it off, I don't want to show my cards. I just want to play this like a home game where we see it at the end, but this is a professional tournament after all, so we end up having to show our cards. He has King Jack offsuit. I'm in terrible shape with King 5, actually a pretty good hand that I would have shoved with had I looked at my cards pre-flop. Daniel has 64%, I have 28%, but with the 7% tie equity, I'm up to 36% in equity, and if we win this, I'll have 825K in my stack. The flop comes Queen 3 with 2 clubs, and now my tie equity goes up to 17%.
Everyone just, what are we thinking on the turn here?
An ace. So like a high.
Little 3-ball?
The turn though brings me up to 39% with a 6 of hearts, and now I go from wanting to chop to extreme greed. I want to hit a heart or a 5 on this river and scoop the pot.
Right, I was going for the chop, but now we're going for the jugular.
But sadly, the poker gods were not on my side with this one. The Jack of Diamonds peels off, and Rezai is going to take this one down here and eliminate me from the tournament in 22nd place for $62,000. You gotta run good through the entirety of the tournament, not just the first day and the first half of day 2. You gotta keep going if you want to make the final table, and I just got super short there. Congratulations to Daniel for knocking me out, because if I double up here, there's no doubt in my mind I would have final tabled and made a deep run in this tournament.
I lost. Yeah, it's really sad. See, you have an interesting job because everyone that comes to you is technically a loser until the last person. You're like a therapist, you know? All right, final thoughts here. 22nd place out of 348 people. If you tell me that before the tournament starts, I'm ecstatic. I'm taking that. Our reward, $62,000. Good for our biggest cash of our life. Probably gonna go back up to my room, do an audio for a video that you've already watched at this point, the Buffalo Bills video. The content grind never stops. Me and Ethan constantly putting out content for you guys. So good for poker. This is really good for poker, but you know what's better for poker? Ethan is still in, so we're gonna rail our friend here. If he can make a final table, nothing would be better.
I end up cashing in 22nd place here out of 348 entrants, something I'm incredibly proud about. But also, I doubled my biggest ever cash, which happened when I placed 18th in the EPT main event in Monte Carlo for $31,000. Even though I didn't reach the final table, I'm super happy with my results today, but I'm not gonna stop there. It would be easy to throw this 62K in the bank and call it a day, but this massive stack of cash is not collecting dust, you guys. We're gonna put it to use tomorrow to buy in for $25,000 into yet again my biggest high stakes poker tournament ever.
I'm thinking if I'm gonna do this one or not.
Okay, bro.
I should?
Yeah, definitely.
That's right, the stakes are even higher tomorrow with an even tougher group of players to battle, but spoiler alert, this is definitely not one you'll want to miss because tomorrow I have the Triton final table in my sights once and for all. Please hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications right now so you know the second it goes live. These videos take a ton of time, money, and effort to make, so please drop a like as well if you support this incredible underdog story I'm sharing with all of you guys. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace!